Here we're on the front of our Jayco Seneca. We're doing a tutorial like you would get on the day of delivery with a technician. We'll go through the entire unit, show you how everything operates with a few tips and tricks along the way. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments, or if you want a deeper dive in some of these components or other helpful hacks, you can find that on the Great American RV YouTube channel under the playlist Haps Helpful Hacks. Click like, follow, subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video. We're going to start under the hood. Let's hop to it. So you do have Freightliner chassis on here. Under the hood, pretty basic stuff. Diesel Cummins engine. We have our coolant, our air filter. This is your gauge right here that lets you know when that air filter needs to be changed out. You'll see it get to that red mark right there. Once you change it out, to reset it, hit that yellow button right there and it'll reset. Windshield washer fluid. It's pretty much everything on the passenger side. Let's go over to the driver's side and we will have our engine oil dipstick right there. Our fill will be right there at the top of our engine. We'll have our fuel filter right here, our little piece right here to go ahead and drain that out of the canister. That way we can go ahead and change it out. We also have our power steering reservoir. We have chassis fuses right here, several other fuse panels and everything that have to do with the chassis all right here under the hood, where our fuses for our house side for the unit will be in a separate place. We'll go over where that is shortly. Of course, all maintenance, air filters, oil changes, fuel filters, all that stuff is going to be on the customer. We need to make sure we maintain this stuff properly. That way Freightliner warranty is still in good standing. Any warranty work that has to do with your chassis will have to be brought to a Freightliner dealer. All right, so first thing on our driver's side, if we open up that door, we can see a battery disconnect right here. This is going to be for our chassis batteries, which means the engine batteries right there. So we want to shut that off when we are storing our unit unplugged. Same thing for our house batteries. For the RV side of things, we'll talk a little bit more about disconnect when we get to that one on the at the entry door for our house battery side. But know that that one is there. Under our door, we have our 110 plug. That is for the heater block. If you live in a cold area, you know what that's for. You plug that in to heat up that block on cold days. We have our fill for our DEF fluid and our side camera right here. You're going to have one of those on both sides. Here we have our 12-volt battery supply. We'll pull those two knobs. Slide that out. We have our house batteries, 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. These are sealed batteries, so no maintenance needed. When we have our chassis batteries right here, same thing, sealed batteries, no maintenance needed. Main thing is we want to keep these charged up. We don't want to let them go dead and stay dead for a long period of time. So it's great to have your unit stored plugged in or have your generator running, so on and so forth, so these things stay charged up real well, and we shut that disconnect off when not in use so that battery can stay stored with some power in there. Right behind that, we're going to have our first big storage compartment with our Xantrax Freedom X 2000 inverter. What an inverter does is it changes 12-volt power, so our battery power, to 110 power, so we can utilize that if we are dry camping or traveling down the road. We don't want to have to run our generator, stuff like that. We have a residential fridge in here, so we're going to want to have 110 power to keep that running while we're traveling, and in turn our alternator on our engine will be charging those batteries whenever it's running and you're traveling down the road. We'll have another remote panel for this on the inside. We'll go over how that operates in a little while. For now, I'll just show you out here, you do have this breaker on here. If this system is ever overamped, it's not working, you want to come out here and check that right off the back. This first circuit board we see right here, that is going to be for our slide out system. We can see we have an underfloor mount slide system right there, that bar. We have our motor right here, and that whole system is for our slide out on the driver's side of the unit. Our operation for that is going to be on the inside. We do have an override video on how that operates in our helpful hacks section of our YouTube channel. There we'll see our 30 amp solar controller from Go Power. That is going to transfer solar power into charging power for our battery system. If we want to utilize that whenever the sun's out, it'll be charging up those batteries. Behind this carpet panel right here, we have a lot of our circuitry These are for all of our 12-volt system. We'll see these breakers and stuff right here. These are all DC breakers. If we see the little yellow lever flipped out, then that means that is tripped and we're no longer getting power. The blue button simulates that being tripped. We just push that, it trips out. To reset it, just slide that back up in there. If it continues to trip, then obviously we have an issue with our system. We need to get it checked out, but sometimes they just trip because they are overamped. This is going to be our battery disconnect for our house side of things. The actual button to control it is going to be by our entry door, but this connects and disconnects that battery system and prevents it from being drained down over time. If we look on the back of that carpeted panel right there, we're going to see our wiring diagram for all this stuff. So we'll see all our solar prep fuses, entry step, cord reel, generator, so on and so forth, a bunch of fuses in here. So if we have any issues with some of these items, we can come here, see if they have to do with any of the stuff in that compartment and get it changed out and fixed. All right, so we'll pull away from that, go to our next compartment, just pass through storage there. In our fourth compartment right here, we have our power cord reel right here. Flip this button, that reel will roll in, and that is where we'll hook up our 50-amp power supply over there. We can go ahead and run it through this door. That way we can close this compartment door here. Anytime you plug in and unplug your 50-amp cord, you want to make sure that your AC system and stuff is off so you don't cause any surges to that. Your fridge, you're fine. Your inverter pass-through and stuff will take that over. That's no big deal. Like I said, roll it in. We'll hold that switch down. That motor will kick in and start rolling that in. Moving down the line, we have our water control system right here. Let's go over a little information on that as well as all of our dumping. All right, so we have our water control system right here up top, satellite cable for your cable connections going into your camper. Have a city water connection here, black tank flush right here. The black tank flush is going to go over how we kind of clean out our black tank, which is our sewage tank. We'll get to that when we get to the dump valves. Our city water connection is going to be where we hook our water up from our campsite if we have a water bib there, or from our house, and that'll supply water to our fixtures on the inside of the unit. It can also fill our tank, so on and so forth, but that's where that hose connection would go. Of course, we have our hot and cold. We have a quick connect here for that blue coiled hose, so on. So let's talk about our fixtures up here. Our dry camping. In order, if we have that fresh tank filled up, in order to get to dry camping, we would have to go to this configuration right here, and that would pull water from that tank and supply it to our water fixtures. But we would have to kick on our water pump right here. Our water pump is 12 volt activated, and it will go ahead and prime our unit and then keep running as long as we are in demand for it, and turn our faucet off. That pump will shut off shortly after. So just keep that in mind. You're going to hear it vibrating, perfectly normal. It's supplying water to us. But if we're certain that all of our fixtures are off and you hear that system vibrating and pumping, we need to go check our system, because one of two things: we're out of fresh water in our tank, or we have a leak in our system and water is going somewhere. So at which point we want to go ahead and shut this off and check those two things. From there, we'll jump over to our power fill tank, which is how we would fill that freshwater tank. So we would need a water source, so that would mean a water hose from the campground or from your house, whatever. We would go to power tank fill, that option right there, and then turn that water on, and that will begin to fill that tank. So we can monitor that from the inside with that monitor in there, or to make sure we don't overfill it. If we do overfill it, it's okay. We do have an overfill hose on that tank that spits the water out on the ground. So if you see water everywhere, I'm gonna come over here, shut it off, because that tank is full. We also have our city water connection. So this is if we have water at the campground or we're using it at our house, whatever, we would turn to this configuration, turn the city water on, supplies water straight to our fixtures. So if we're using that, we want to turn our water pump on off. We don't want to have that on while we have city water hooked up, because there's just no need for it. It supplies pressure to have it. There's just no need to have it on, so just shut it off. We have winterize and sanitize. We'll kind of talk about those in sequence. These are our two different valve setups. So winterization is when we are prepping our unit for wintertime. Extreme cold temperatures, we're pumping RV antifreeze into our unit. Sanitize is if we are sanitizing our fixtures on our unit with a mixture of bleach and water. Both of them have a similar process, just different valve configurations, because this one is going into our tank, this one is going into our fixtures, okay? So with the exception of where they're going, the process is the same as far as how we use it. We would hook a water hose up to this. We would cut the other end off and run it into a tank of RV antifreeze, kick our water pump on, and that would supply it to our fixtures if we're under winterization. If we are doing sanitizing our system via the tank, then we do the same thing, water hose here, then the other end goes into a bucket of bleach and water solution, kick our water pump on, it sucks it out of there, supplies it to our fresh tank. Then from there we can turn our fresh tank pump on, go to dry camp, then it would supply it to our fixtures. So whatever way, which way you go. If we do winterize, that's where our low point drains come in to check. We need to open those up, drain all the water out of our system. There are more steps into winterization. You can find it in your owner's manual or a video under Hap's Helpful Hacks. That wraps up everything on our water control system here. Oh, and a little red switch right here is for our light up top. All right, so we got that out of the way. We have our macerator. So what that macerator does is basically it chews up the sewage. Okay, we're going to talk a little more about that when we get to our dump station, but know that's where that switch is. Right below it, we have our black tank selection. So we have one black tank flush right there, but we have two black tanks on here. So we can choose black tank 1 or black tank 2 by swapping this over. We'll go over black tank flush once again with the macerator when we get to our dumps. We'll talk about the rest of this stuff first. We have our water filter right here. That can be removed and changed out. You will see some valves up here on the top. You want to go ahead and depressurize your water system. Turn those valves off, then you can open that up. Otherwise, it's going to be a little hard with water pressure on there. Change that filter out, open them back up, and let the water flow. Back here, you'll also see your low point drains to go ahead and drain out the water out of your system. So now we're going to talk about our dumping system. So we're going to jump around to a few different compartments here with this one because we do have multiple tanks in here, right? So we have two gray tanks and two black tanks. So we'll start off with defining what they are. Our gray tanks are our shower and sink water. Our black tanks is our sewage from our toilets. We have two toilets on this system. Our gray tanks, we can leave those open all the time if we are hooked up to a port somewhere and we just want to let that water flow out. We can go ahead and do that. That way we don't have to keep coming out here and draining that system out. Now our black tanks, however, those are our sewage system, so we're going to have solids in there, toilet paper, sewage, so on and so forth. We always want water in those tanks. So even after we dump them, we want to put several gallons of water in there after we flush that system. We keep these valves closed so that water stays in that tank and that stuff doesn't solidify. We want to add our chemicals in there to treat that tank and help decay anything that might be in there. That way it flushes out next time we drain it. So keep that in mind. Gray tanks, you can keep it open all the time. Black tanks, we want to always keep several gallons of water in that system. Now another thing that I'll talk about in here before we go over the valves is this is our macerator system right here. So we have this big tank right here. That's going to lead to this hose right here. And then this would take the place of our large hose here if we want to use that macerator system. A macerator is basically a motor and it's going to chew up all of our sewage and help spit it out into that sewage system. So that's just another option that we can use. We have that macerator switch right there to be able to do that, and it just kind of helps clean everything out of that tank and whatnot, makes it flow out easier. Whenever we are done with our macerator, if we want to leave a little bit of water in our gray tank, we can dump that and it'll help flush that system out in that macerator tank, or we can just continue to run our tank flush in there. So that tank flush, like I said, has two options. You have your black tank 1 and black tank 2. Depending on which tank you are flushing at the moment, it will be one connection here and swap between those two tanks. So while you are dumping your tanks, you want that black tank flush on. That way it's helping push any debris that's in that tank down to these valves, so it will either go to your macerator or through your outlet right here. So gray tank dumps out of this, macerator dumps out of this. If you want to use your macerator, you're going to hook this up, kick the macerator on, and then open this valve as well as the other ones we're going to go over in a minute, and just let it flow through. If you want to dump it the old style way, you're going to have to open this valve first. That doesn't open up any of your tanks, just your main flow for all the rest of them. I know it sounds kind of confusing. That's why we're going over it, all right? So let me show you real quick where all the valves are. We have this one right here. This is for one of the gray tanks. It's going to be in that compartment there. Now we're on the passenger side. This is the third compartment behind our entry door right there. We're going to see our black tank right here. Okay, so that's black tank 1. And then the other one was gray tank 1, and this is our second to last compartment on the passenger side. Up under here, we're going to see another gate valve right here. This is our gray. We can notice our handles are different colors. This is our gray 2, and this is going to be our black 2. Okay, so this is for our rear toilet for that black tank, and our rear galley or gray tank area there. So that's where all our valves are. Let's go back to the main area. All right, so we're back over here. Let's say we are dumping on the macerator. We hook it up. We can turn our macerator on, start opening your valves. You can start with your gray here. You can go open your gray on the other side, let water flush out. Then you can open up one of your black tanks, have your black tank 1 open, have your black tank flush hooked up, black tank 1 right here on your tank selector. That will flush out that black tank. Once you're satisfied, close that tank off, add some water over into it, swap over to our black 2. We're going to go to that second to last compartment, open our black 2, still have our black tank flush running, and then that will start to come out of here and macerate that system. Close that off, fill it up with water, shut that system down on your macerator. You're good to go, okay? From there, add our chemicals, and we're ready to go ahead and let it sit. Make sure we have water in the black tanks once again. If we want to do it here, same exact thing. Open up both your gray valves, open this valve, let everything drain out. You're good to go. Ready to flush your black tanks. Want to go to black tank 1, go to the compartment opposite of this one, pull that black tank 1. This valve will be open, let it flush out. Go to black tank 2, flush it out, the whole time swapping with your black tank selection right there. Up above that water compartment, we're going to have our fill for our diesel tank right there. And then down below that back compartment is going to be our diesel generator. Now our generator and our engine are both going to pull out of the same diesel tank, but there will be a quarter tank cutoff. So once it gets to a quarter tank, your generator is going to stop pulling from that tank. That way it doesn't leave the chassis tank on empty. So keep that in mind. If you add a quarter tank and it won't crank, you don't have enough fuel in there. Once again, a diesel generator, you're going to have your oil fill, your coolant, dipstick is on the oil fill right there as well. We're going to have our start, stop, and preheat. We can go ahead and hold it down to initiate that fuel pump, or we can just hold down that start and it'll preheat and kick that fuel pump in on its own. On cold days, it's going to take a little longer to get started, so keep that in mind. We have a little hour meter right here to let us know how many hours we have on our generator. That way we can stay on top of our maintenance. Next to that is our 35 amp breaker. This is the breaker for the generator to output power to our main breaker on the inside. So if we lose power running off a generator, we want to check the main breaker on the inside. If nothing is tripped there, we want to come out and check this one, see if it's tripped. If so, turn off some of those appliances, reset it, kick it back on, and then turn those appliances on one by one. We might have just overamped our system. Next compartment is our aqua hot system. So our aqua hot system is basically our water heater, okay? It's gonna burn off of diesel fuel in here. We have a screen in here that allows us to operate some of it. We have a electric status, which is electric power to heat this system, or burner status, which is the diesel portion of it as well. So we'll go over a little bit more information on that when we hit the inside control panel. We are going to have our coolant tank and stuff, want to make sure that we're putting the proper coolant in there and we make sure that it's at the proper level. We do have maintenance on here. That fuel oil filter will need to be changed out. The system does need to be flushed. The burner needs to be cleaned every so often. There's a little bit of maintenance on here we want to make sure we keep up with. You bring it to one of our shops to have that taken care of. Down behind that is going to be our back cap. We have our backup camera up there at the top. That is going to help us see when we're backing up or whatever's behind us while we're towing or traveling. 7-way plug, receiver hitch for towing behind us. Most important thing back here is our factory supplied ladder. Now we have a fiberglass roof up there, and that fiberglass roof is susceptible to being damaged from tree branches, stuff like that. So we need to get up there, check it after trips, make sure we don't have any damage. We also need to make sure that our sealant is in good shape. This includes our sealant on all of our side trims, around our windows, stuff like that. All sealant needs to be checked every 60 to 90 days for any cracking, peeling, deterioration on the unit. And if you find any of those things, we need to clean it and reseal it with the proper sealant. I don't care if you leave it in a garage, under a cover, under a tarp, out in the sun, whatever the case may be, check that sealant on a regular basis. If you don't, and you get a water leak, well, that's going to be considered customer neglect of the sealant and maintenance, and that's going to be on the customer to have to repair it. Manufacturers don't participate in lack of maintenance. So want to make sure we stay on top of this. It is very disregarded by a lot of customers, so I'm telling you, make sure we stay on top of the maintenance of our sealants on our unit. Is probably the #1 most important thing we need to do. On our passenger side, of course, we're going to have another side camera here. We'll talk about our steps and stuff here in a few. Our outdoor compartment right here supplies us with a Samsung TV, JBL radio. We can scan for channels on antenna or cable out here. We talked about our cable port over there by the water system. Have our JBL audio that we can hook Bluetooth and stuff too. Our Camco little ice chest right here. Pull our latches, we can pull that out. We have drain plugs on each one. Want to drain that water out, let it air out, keep it from having any mold and mildew in there. And then of course we have our controls right here to be able to change the temperatures, pretty easy. We do have an eco mode and a high mode in there we can change, or max mode I should say, we can change for our settings. We have our different temperature marks right there. We can see right here to the right is for the right box, to the left is for the left box. I know there's a little bit of glare in there, so kind of hard to see, but we can change the temperature of these items through that. And then we hit our settings bar, we can change the temperature of the other one as well. We'll slide that back in, push it in, locks in right there. The system does have the 110 cord plugged in right there. Do have a battery system on here so you can take it with you and keep it cool while you're traveling around. Our next compartment, just another pass-through and more storage, more pass-through, more storage, but we have that black tank handle we talked about for our dumping system right there for black tank 1. And then moving down, our next compartment is going to be more storage. Second to last compartment, more storage with at black tank 2 and our gray tank right there, that valve right there for our lab in the rear. And then our very last compartment is just more storage. Up top we have our Girard roof mount awning. We have our 12-volt lights on there. That is a 12-volt powered awning. Controls for it are on the touchscreen on the inside. We'll talk about in a little bit. These systems do not require a pitch like regular wall mount awnings would. But in high winds, stuff like that, we want to go ahead and roll it in. You're also going to have a wind sensor on there that's going to bring it in. But if you know a storm's coming, make sure you bring it in because you don't want that insurance claim. You don't want the hassle of having to try to get a torn up awning off of your roof. So just kind of keep that in mind. Next, we'll go over our entry door. All right, so at our entry door, of course, we have electric steps. These are 12-volt powered. Whenever we open and close our door, we can have it set up to where those steps stay out whenever we are camping. If we want them to go in and out, we have a little switch right there on the inside. Go ahead and close our door and those steps will come in and out when we open and close that door. Now, if we do leave them on, or off rather, where those steps stay out, and we're getting ready to leave, our ignition will override, pull those steps in just in case we forget. There's a little magnet down here on the unit. It'll either be down at the bottom left, somewhere on one of the trims of the screen door that detects when that door is open or closed. So if you have any issues with it, you might want to check that magnet first. Otherwise, we have a video on how to override that. You can check that out in the HAPS Helpful Hacks section like we've said before. Before we go inside, one thing I'll mention on all of our wheels, these caps right here are just decorative caps. They have a little grab tool you put on here and pull these off. Don't ever try to pull them off with a socket over this. You'll tear up those caps. The actual lug nuts are behind it. Generally, a tire company knows that, but good information to pass along. All right, as we walk in our entry door, we'll have our main power disconnect right here. That'll shut off the 12 volts for the house side of the system. We have separate house and chassis disconnects. Chassis one is going to be by that driver's door. So what these do is basically it's like disconnecting your battery. There will be a couple of features that are still hooked to it, so it still will cause a drain. So I always suggest if you store your unit unplugged and you come out here, run the engine, generator every so often to keep them charged up so those batteries don't go bad. But we use this when we are storing our unit unplugged. Any other time you use your unit, you're pulling it out, driving, you are camping in it, dry camping, doesn't matter. Plug that thing, kick that back on. If you are plugged in, kick it on. Otherwise, your charging system isn't going to be kicked in and charging that battery. The batteries on your unit, and they'll go dead after a period of time. To the right of that is our on off button for our steps like we talked about. And now we'll move on to our touch panel right here. We have porch light, main ceiling light, awnings, accent, extend and retract our awning, our light master off and on. We want to hold that, run that awning out. We just hold down the extend button until it's fully extended or until we want to stop. Same thing with the retract. Light master off and on, pretty obvious. We turn off and on all of our lights. Now, all of that stuff is kind of redundant because we'll see that right here on our next panel. Our next panel shows us our main screen for our touch panel. So this is our home screen right here. Sorry, this is our home screen right here. We see all of our living room, kitchen lights, all that stuff, our light master off and on. We're going to see all that kind of stuff in several different places of our unit. So keep that in mind that these panels will operate that in several different places. We have our quick reference for our AC system, as well as all of our tanks for our fresh, gray, black. We have 2 tanks for each, all that stuff right here. We're also going to have quick access to our water pump. We talked about our water pump. It is an on-demand pump, so it is going to operate basically when you have any faucets on. If you notice that that pump is running, it's going to be outside in that water bay compartment. You notice it's running and you're sure all your faucets are on. You might want to come shut it off because it can burn up. Either our fresh tank is empty or we have a leak somewhere in our system. So we want to shut it off and investigate before it burns up. Now here we have, like I said, our AC cheat sheet stuff. We're also going to have our AquaHot burner for diesel and our AquaHot for electric. If you want to initiate those, just click the button. It's as easy as that. If we want to run it off of diesel, we kick it on, and that system will kick on and start heating that water. We want to run it on electric, and we are plugged in or running our generator, we can go ahead and run it on electric, whichever one you choose to do. Now when I say diesel, I mean diesel. We're pulling out of our tank once again, just like our generator does. So it shares that diesel fuel in your system. Over here we got our house and chassis battery voltage. We also have our generator with our hours, start, stop, and our AGS. We're going to talk a little bit more about our AGS system right now. We're going to have some more settings on here that we can talk about. So this is enabling our system. We hit enable. Of course, we heed our warning on there as far as if we are in any unventilated areas. If that generator kicks on, it is going to cause have some exhaust with carbon dioxide. We hold down that enable button for 6 seconds, come over here, and we can go ahead and change all of our settings on here. So what we use this for is if we store our unit unplugged, this can go ahead and monitor our current voltage on our battery, kick that generator on, and it will charge that battery up. So we can choose to start that at whatever voltage we want, 11.7, we can change it to 11.9, whatever. Have our time at start volts, which means that it needs to be at 11.8 for at least 60 seconds before that generator can kick on. That will go ahead and prevent it for if any high amperage items come on. It lowers that for maybe 10 seconds and then it goes back up. It doesn't kick that system back on right away. So we can change that if we want. We have our minimum generator run time. So that means that once it kicks on, because of this voltage being low, that system will kick on for at least 15 minutes and run, or it will run until this system gets to the proper voltage or our time at stop volts. So that means that it will either reach that voltage or it will reach our max generator run time of 720 minutes and then shut down. Our time at stop volts, that's going to be how long it's been at 13.5. So 13.5 is charging voltage. That is going to mean that your batteries are charging when that generator is running. So it doesn't mean they're actually charged. So basically this is saying, hey, I want my batteries to charge for 2 hours. If you want it to charge any less, then you can go ahead and drop it down, but 120 minutes is going to be your max. Your generator start retries would be 5. So that system would shut off at 5. Of course, we can go ahead and adjust that with the maximum, once again, being 5. It'll give you 40 seconds between every retry of that generator. And then, of course, we can set our quiet time right here on the side with 10 p.m. shutting off, 8 a.m. starting up, so on and so forth. We can change all that if we want. Once again, giving you your generator hours as well. If we want HVAC triggers, that means it will pull off of our thermostat. So we'll click over to our thermostat real quick. If we have our thermostat set to 69 and it is within a range away from that, like this one right here, we're at 77 in the front, that AC will kick on and go ahead and cool our unit down to 69 degrees, and that will all be based off of our auto generator start settings. So once again, we're still going to be running off of our run times, our quiet times, all that, but our HVAC will be the trigger for that system. If you want to do both, you can do both as well. So our next screen after our home screen is our electrical. Kind of the same stuff. We have our voltage for our system. We have our generator start, stop, so on and so forth. Our automatic generator start system, our triggers for both of those. Once again, it's all just kind of redundant stuff. We have our solar. It will give us the voltage coming into our unit, our amperage being pulled off of it, as well as our watts being pulled in from our solar as well. We do have that Go Power solar set up. On this screen, it will give us the same thing, our voltage, our amperage, our wattage. This will give us our status for our controller. At this point, there's no faults in our system. This will give us a history as far as how our solar is operating over the past few days. And then we can also go into a setup. Our setup will allow us to change our battery type from AGM to lithium or flooded or gel. So depending on what type of batteries you have in this system, that is going to be where we change that, and of course our amp hours as well. Once we're happy and satisfied, of course we do have 2 batteries on this system, so we can go ahead and configure both. Once we're satisfied, we hit that return. It's going to bring you back to your main screen. I'm not going to take too deep a dive into solar. That's a whole nother ball game of subject right there, but this is where we can monitor it if we want to monitor how that solar is doing. Our next pad is going to be lights. Once again, a lot of redundancy in here with the same kind of controls, but it individualizes all of that stuff. On our climate control screen, we have our front and rear AC. We have our heat pump option. Our heat pump is going to be coming out of our rooftop air vents. So basically it's that AC working in reverse. This is just to knock the chill out. So if you're maybe 50 degrees or above, you're just looking to knock the chill, then you use your heat pump. If it's really cold, we want to use our AquaHot system, okay? So just keep that in mind. That is not going to heat up your camper in very cold temperatures. We have the AquaHot option, we have the auto option. Our rear AC is going to work the same way as our first AC. We're about to go over that, but with the exception of we're not going to have the heat pump option, we're not going to have the auto option on there as well. So let's jump back over. If we want to cool our unit, we have our current temperature and then we have our set to temperature right here that we can change. We go ahead and hit cool, we set our temperature, whatever we want it to be, and that AC will kick on. We have the options for high, low, or auto for our fan. High and low, that fan's going to run regardless if that compressor is on or not. It'll continue to run. Auto, that fan will shut off whenever that compressor shuts off. Heat pump, like I said, same thing as our cool, but it's going to put heat out of those rooftop air in the front, and same thing, high, low, or auto for that system. Now our aqua hot, we have to go ahead and have one of them initiated, then we can have our aqua hot initiated. That is going to come out of our floor vents down below. We'll show you real quick. See right there, those lower floor vents throughout our unit, that's where that air is going to come out. So we have our heater. This takes the place of a gas heater. That aqua hot system will actually be our heater. This will work same thing over on our rear. We have two separate areas for that. And then we also have it for our basement as well. You got some vents in your basement to go ahead and keep those heated up. That way the tank stuff in there does not freeze in cold temperatures. Once again, we can use that on burner or electric, whichever one we choose to do. We also have our floor heat option throughout our unit. Want to set our temperature for our floor heat? We initiate it right there. That is all going to pull off of that aqua hot system. So if we don't have aqua hot initiated, then we're going to see that, no aqua hot source. We're trying to initiate our floor heat. We just need to choose which one we want to do, and that aqua hot system will kick in. So just know, if you want your aqua hot, you have to have it initiated down here at the bottom. That's the main thing we need to walk away with here. Our quiet mode is for that aqua hot system. If we only want to have it run during periods where it's daytime, not nighttime, because it can be a little noisy outside. Our next screen is our slide outs and everything. So our patio awning, once again, extend and retract from here. We have our bed slide. Our bedroom slide is a Schwintek slide. And then we talked about our driver's side slide is a below floor mount slide. Extend and retract for both of those as well. We want to have our engine off, and then we can go ahead and initiate this stuff. We want to make sure our jacks are down as well before we start running out our slide outs. On our settings page, we do have a mobile app we can go ahead and download and operate some of that stuff from there. We have our switch panel info, which is basically for all those duplicate panels, the little screens that we see where we can do porch lights, main ceiling lights, awning, and all that stuff. It is showing that all of that stuff is active. And on the back of them, we can see we have a little battery back here. We need to go ahead and change that battery out if they get low here, so they will continue to communicate. So just know they got that little watch battery back there, and it may need to be changed out in the event that that system is not working. Back on our settings, we have network diagnostics, which is just our G12 panel. It's how our system communicates. If we have any faults on here, we can see that there. That's something that you would go to if you're on the phone with diagnostics or anything like that. Aqua hot diag, this is the same screen that we had outside. Once again, not much to talk about all this stuff. This is more technical things. We're not really going to go into that deep on this. This is for technician use mainly. Our temperature, we can change Fahrenheit and Celsius. Our floor plan, don't mess with that. That is the computer system that is set up for this floor plan, so we certainly don't want to mess with that. We can change our time right here, and then of course our cleaning mode will just make the screen black for 15 seconds so we can wipe it down without it popping up and changing any settings on our unit. All right, below our touchscreen we have our Xantrax system. We can kick it on, push that button in, and when our button's there, that'll give us our battery voltage. Now we're plugged in right now, so that system is charging. It is doing what's called a pass-through, so we're bypassing that inverter right now because we don't need it. If we unplug or we don't have our generator running on our unit, then this should, as long as we have that button on, automatically kick over and start inverting, in which case you'll see this battery level right here connect with our heating element, and then it will start inverting for things like our residential fridge and so on. If we don't want to run our inverter, just turn that off and that inverter system will not operate. All right, if we turn around, we have storage over to the right of our dinette booth. Now our dinette booth can drop down into a bed. It's our back cushion right here. This cushion right here can come off, and what we do on both sides, take that cushion off, lift our tabletop, and we'll pull it down. We'll see our tabletop has some grooves right there and right there. That's what's holding it into the wall. We move those cushions. This lays down, put the cushions on top, and we have a bed. And then when we're ready to put it back, you go ahead and lift up, little shock arm kind of helps it. Once it hits the wall, lever it up a little bit, and then we're making sure those teeth latch back into that bracket, and our dinette booth is good to go. Of course, we have USB ports and electric recliners right there. Our middle has a pull handle. And then over here we have our induction cooktop. No gas on this unit because of course we have our AquaHot system. This induction cooktop is going to take the special pots and pans that came with your unit. Pretty simple to operate. We just turn it on and then we can adjust our temperature. Of course, once again, got to have that pot and pan on there. We can do timer, we can lock everything so that way if you touch it by accident, it doesn't change anything. So that is our induction cooktop. Our microwave right here does have a fan in it to go ahead and ventilate out. We do have a vent on that wall right there. I'm going to notice that vent has a couple tabs on it. Want to make sure those tabs are open so it ventilates out. If we want, we can close them and latch them when our unit is in storage so no insects or build any nest in there. Beyond that, we have our refrigerator. This is a residential 110 refrigerator. We have our travel latches there and there. Want to make sure we use those when we travel down the road. Pretty simple. Of course, we're going to have our ice maker and stuff in here. The biggest thing we need to remember is when we go to store our unit, we're unplugging it. So this refrigerator is going to shut down. We need to defrost that freezer, get the ice out of there, get all of our goods out, and then let this thing air out. We need to wipe down any moisture that's in there, reduce the risk for mold and mildew, and then also reduce the opportunity for water to leak out and damage our wood framing around our fridge because manufacturers aren't going to cover that type of repair. That'd be a lack of maintenance from the customer when we are prepping for storage. So we need to make sure we do that properly. Up above, we'll see our AC system right here. This is our ceiling assembly. We have one in the rear bedroom and one in here. We have quick dump vents on the end. So if we want to cool off just this area, we go ahead and open these up. If we want our air to ventilate through our ceiling ducts throughout our unit, we want to make sure these are closed so it forces the air through there. We do have a filter up here. We pull these two tabs on each side, pop that down. We need to clean that filter fairly regularly so we're not reducing the airflow to that AC unit. Here we have our Connects TV. It is a smart TV. We do have a couple of videos of how Connects works. You can go ahead and check that out on the HAPS Helpful Hacks page. In here, we're going to have our antenna booster and then also our selector for our TVs. So on the back of here, you have HDMI ports. So if you want to add a DVD player, PlayStation, so on and so forth on the back of here, we have A, B, C, and D ports right here on the back for all that stuff to run into, and then this distributes out to each one of these TVs. You have bedroom TV, exterior TV, so on and so forth, and then you just push the button right here as far as which input you want to use for that TV. All of that is sourced through our Ethernet power, our Ethernet cords right there that's plugged into. Those will run into every one of our TVs. So over here on the side, we have our satellite switch to turn that off and on. That is for our rooftop satellite that we have. We're going to have our LNB ports right here. These will run to a receiver for Dish Network or DirecTV, and then run an HDMI from the receiver into the back of the distribution box, and then you'll have satellite with you on your TV. Now here is our antenna booster. So the button off to the left, we push that button, that turns that green light on. That is used when we want to scan for antenna channels on our TV. So we have the option for antenna or cable. So if campground has cable, we run our coax cable from the port at the campground to our port over by the water selection valves, and we want to turn this off and scan for cable channels. If we're scanning for antenna, we want it on. So this boosts our antenna signal to pick up more channels in that area. Our one on the right is Wi-Fi boost or cellular. If we upgraded to the Wi-Fi gateway system by WineGuard, as 12-volt power for that, we basically have cellular Wi-Fi with us wherever we go. So that's an on-off button for that one. Close that. We have our fireplace right here below it. Power button, kick that on. Cut that off real quick, kick that on. We have our timer right here on the side that gives you obviously how many hours you can run it until it shows a blank screen, then it's off. That flame button right there changes the ambiance of the lights down below. And then our temperature gauge right here goes from low to high, that will actually output heat out of that vent. So this is a 110 heater, not gas. It's just an electric heater. And like I said, you can have the ambiance on even without it blowing out heat. You just want a blank screen after you hit that thermometer a couple times. So that's a nice feature. We want to help heat our unit. We have our COLP detector right here. That COLP detector is going to warn us of any cautious gases. It does have an audible alarm on there. We can test with that push button right there. We need to do that fairly regularly. That little green light means that it's powered on, and this is hardwired into our 12-volt system, so it's going to be powered on all the time. We're also going to see an expiration date right there to the right. That lets us know when it expires, when we need to replace it, but we need to check this fairly regularly. It does have some warning advice around about cleaning it on that label. We want to make sure we stay on top of that and clean it properly. Over to the left, we have our half bath. Our half bath has our toilet in here. Our toilet is going to be for sewage, RV toilet paper, and chemicals only, all right? So this is going to apply for our rear toilet as well. It's activated by our flush pedal right there at the bottom. So the only thing we're putting in there for sewage-wise, we're talking about number 1 and number 2. Number 1 is liquids, number 2 is solids. If it's number 1, hit the pedal, send it down the drain, you're good. If it's number 2, we want to barely push this pedal down right here to where that ball valve is still closed at the bottom, and start filling this tank with water. We want to fill it about half to 3/4 away, so there's enough water in there that when we flush it, it sends those solids all the way down to that tank, and then we don't run into any issues with it getting clogged. Above that, we do have our vent right there we can utilize. We have our controls for that vent right here. Pretty self-explanatory, off, on. We can change the speed of our fan and then use our arrows to raise our lid. Off, on, we have our lid raised, and we can change our fan speeds and everything right there. Pretty self-explanatory. Water pump right there, another place for our water pump to be kicked on. Of course, if you don't have city water, that's when you would have that water pump on. If you do have city water, we want to leave that off. And of course, we have another light switch right there. In our bathroom, we're also going to have a GFCI outlet. So all your wet locations are going to be controlled by a GFCI outlet, whether it be on here or it's going to be the breaker and the breaker panel. So what this does is if the outlets ever get wet or they get overamped because we have too many coffee makers, griddles, blow dryers plugged into those outlets and being used, this system will overamp and trip out. In which case that green light right there is going to be off, and then we come over here and just reset it. Now if this outlet trips again right away, then we need to go unplug some of those appliances and then also check and make sure no outlets are wet. Otherwise it's just going to continue to re-trip. So keep that in mind. We're messing with that GFCI. Moving out, we're going to have our bedroom area right here. Our bed is on a bed lift. A bed lift can be controlled by that switch right there to go ahead and lower it down. Now that slide out may not work if our bed lift is down. So it's on a safety deal because this won't fit in here if this bed isn't lifted up, right? So if our slide out isn't coming in, we want to come make sure that our tilt bed is all the way up. That way it can actually initiate the slide out. Down below our bed, we're going to see our 2 breaker panels. One is going to have fuses in it. It's for our 12-volt items. And then our other one is our 110 breakers right there. We'll see this white one, this one right here has that white button. That is a GFCI outlet breaker. That is going to be kind of like that one that we have in the bathroom, except that's our test switch to reset. We just shut it off and kick it back on. All this stuff is labeled right here on our door. We can go ahead and investigate there and see if any of these components right here coordinate with what may or may not be working. We'll see a little green flashing light in there. That is for our charging wizard. No worries there. You have your converter located under here, and when you're plugged in, you're going to hear that little fan in there cooling off that converter system. What a converter does is it charges our 12-volt battery system. It changes 110 to 12-volt voltage. So, or charging voltage, I should say. So you're going to hear that fan run from time to time anytime you're plugged in. That's why I say keep that battery disconnect on. We're also going to have another couple breakers in here, once again, labeled right there on the side as far as what they control. Over here, we're going to have a little bit of storage behind our TV, of course. And no antenna booster back here. That's only going to be one antenna booster right there by our front TV. Have our telescopic ladder for a bunk right there. And then we'll move into our bathroom. We also have our washer dryer. If you don't have one, should be prepped for one. In our bathroom, we have another GFCI located over there by the sink. Another control for our Max Air, our Air XL fan up above us. That fan needs to be used regularly in here when we shower because we want to get the heat and humidity out of here and reduce the opportunity for mold and mildew. Talked about our toilet. This one's going to work the same way. It's going to go to a separate black tank. We'll talk about our shower real quick, hot and cold just like normal, but we'll see an on-off button on that shower head. That is to go ahead and conserve water when we are dry camping. So in between lathering up and rinsing off, we can go ahead and just hit that off button there rather than fighting trying to find that hot cold spot right there on our faucet. We do that to conserve the amount of water that we are using out of our fresh tank, as well as the amount of water we're putting in our gray tank if we don't have a place to fill it up or a place to dump it. So up here, another AC assembly, gonna work the same way. We have more AC ports right there. That wraps up everything on our Seneca.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us, and keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores, where we bring the how-to you.